Good morning, members. It is 9:05 on March 24th, 2025. I'm calling to order the Minnesota Senate Committee on Rules and Administration. A quorum is present. We have before us today one bill, Senator Boldon's Senate File 828, that Senator Marty will be presenting today. Senator Marty, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is a simple bill that would create a working group on local campaign finance reporting. Right now, local governments have their own various systems, and many of them, there's no easy way for the public to see the data and so on. It would make sense for the State Campaign Finance Board to do this, to keep track of it. However, it'd be a huge task because there are so many local governments that would be reporting there. And so figuring out how that would work and how it doesn't become a big burden for the Campaign Finance Board, but how we can do this in a logical way. But before anything else, I do have an A7 amendment, which is, the first part of it would say that picking the chair would be from the legislative members. And the second part was just that the Campaign Finance Board would provide technical support, which they would be planning on doing anyway. But that's the amendment, and I'd move that.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Senator Marty, a member of the committee, moves the A7 amendment. Members, do you have questions on the amendment? Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the A7, if I'm reading this correctly, it requires the chair to be a legislator. Why is it that the legislator is required to be a chair on that one? What was the move?
Senator Johnson,
Senator
I was
Marty.
not involved in the discussions on that, but I'm guessing it's because it's a legislative request to do this, and having a township officer chair it, and so I think it was somebody decided it was a better way to do it. I don't have strong feelings about it, but I think it's a reasonable request because this is a working group that's going to be reporting to us. And in some cases, I'd say it shouldn't be a legislator. Some cases, legislators shouldn't be on it, but it was just a decision that it should be that. So I can't tell you the arguments they used, but that's the logic I would explain it by.
And Senator Marty, if I could, I'll call on our counsel, Ms. Stengel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Marty and members, this is a request from the Legislative Coordinating Commission. They find it's most effective when when chairs are legislators. It puts them in sort of an awkward spot when chairs are not legislative members if they're working in ways that are contradictory to what the legislature wants. So it works best when legislators are the chairs.
Further questions? Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question I had is, do we on the Rules Committee generally consider this type of legislation here? I've followed a lot of bills and a lot of task forces and working groups, but I don't remember them all coming here. Is that true?
Senator Rest.
Madam Chair and Senator Limmer, every bill that proposes legislators being on any kind of working group or setting up a new commission, they're required to come before the Rules Committee. And that also applies to conference committees. You cannot set up in a conference committee a working group that has legislators on it because that proposal has not come before the Rules Committee in either body, but specifically not in ours. It's just not allowed. It's required to be here. It's not something they choose. Moreover, there are a set of guidelines for anybody proposing a working group in other legislation that also should come here as to what constitutes a workable working group. Sometimes we get proposals that don't have any, they have all these people on it, but they don't have any way to convene themselves. That's happened with the Legislative Budget Office. There's nobody appointed to convene the meeting. We're trying to change that with legislation, but that's why those proposals need review by the Rules Committee, and they're required to have them.
Thank you, Senator Rest.
Madam Chair.
Senator Limmer.
Senator Rest. Does this mean that a group of legislators who want to work on a common issue, let's say during the interim, could not get together?
Senator
Madam Chair and
Rest.
Senator Limmer, legislators have their own, by their election certificate. One of the biggest powers they have is that of convening. They can convene any group at all for any purpose, we would hope a legitimate one, and they themselves can make recommendations to the legislature. This is putting it in statute. And it would be, and it is setting up the conditions and requirements. A group that you may convene, dealing with the same thing, as a matter of fact, is not required to make a report to the legislature, not required to come up with legislative recommendations or solutions to anything. Your group might have a better proposal and put that into legislation. This makes it a requirement.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Limmer. Seeing, Senator Johnson, did you have another question?
No, Madam Chair, we're just on the A7 amendment to the.
We are.
Yeah, okay,
We are indeed.
no questions.
All right. Seeing no further questions, Senator Rest will move the A7 amendment.
I move the A7 amendment.
Senator Rest moving, oh, excuse me, it was Senator Marty who already moved it. Senator Marty
Okay.
moved the amendment.
That's right, you did.
Seeing no questions, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. And the motion is adopted. Senator Marty to the bill.
No other comments. I think the bill speaks for itself, and I didn't know why it had come here, but now I believe it's going back to elections. So
Senator Marty, it's right. This will go back to the Elections Committee. There is a slight fiscal cost to this, which if we move forward with this would be carried in the elections bill.
And so, Madam Chair, I'd move that Senate File 828 as amended be recommended pass and re-referred to the Committee on Elections.
Senator Marty moves Senate File 828 be, I'm sorry. Y'all go down there? Senator Marty moves 828 be moved to, moved to be adopted. Is that right? Are you whispering at me?
No, I was
Recommended it pass.
whispering to myself.
Be recommended to pass and re-referred to the Committee on Elections. All those in favor,
Are we going to have
please-
discussion on the underlying bill
Sure.
itself?
That was my, yes.
Okay, just fine.
That was my
Before we
point.
pass it, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Sorry about that.
Any questions? Any
Yes,
comments?
thank you, Madam Leader. And this is to Senator Marty. Could you just, this is the first time I've seen this bill. Just wondering, could you give me some context behind the working group and the impetus behind why we're doing this bill today?
Sure. We've heard from a number of local governments who have people who are concerned they can't get access to local campaign finance reporting because most cities and counties and so on have some sort of reporting, and they can't access it easily. There's no place they keep it. And so this was simply a thought, let's look at, see if they could all be kept in one common space. It's basically a library where you can see the reports that are out there. Of course, the library also gets lots of questions from people, and there's so many more local races, local campaigns, local campaign committees that it would be more work for them. So this is partly to look over, is there an efficient way we could do this? Because lots of people in certain communities where there's a big fight over some local controversy, and there's a desire for people, understandably, to be able to see who's paying for the campaigns and how much they're spending and so on. And that's very hard for most people to access in a lot of local governments. So this would make it consistent, but again, is that workable? And that's what this working group is to look at.
Senator Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Marty. So they're already reporting this information to somewhere, but this would centralize the repository for that information and make it accessible to the public,
Right,
is what you're
every
saying.
city has its own system for where they're kept, and smaller communities, it's kind of a hassle where they put it. Do they have a website for it? Do they whatever? So this would be an attempt to make it simpler for everybody, but again, it may be difficult to do, and so there may be it might be a big cost, and so it might not happen. But I think this working group is to try and figure that out, because there's a desire to make things more transparent and accountable.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Marty.
Thank you, Leader Johnson. Any other discussion or questions? All right, then. Seeing no further discussion, Senator Marty renews his motion and recommends that Senate File 828, it is Monday morning in my head, is just not with us. Senator Marty moves that Senate File 828 be recommended to
As
pass
amended.
and re-referred to the Committee on Elections.
As amended.
As amended. Thank you, everybody. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say no. And that is adopted. Thank you, Senator Marty. Up next, Senator Latz on Senate Resolution 15. Welcome to the committee, Senator Latz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a little bit nervous because I heard that Senator Limmer is whispering to himself over there. So.
Madam Chair,
Senator Limmer.
my wife has the same thoughts.
Okay, good morning. Senator Latz, if you'd like to proceed, welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Madam Chair and members, Senate Resolution 15 articulates and itemizes the violence that occurred on January 6, 2021 in our nation's capital, in which many individuals vandalized the public buildings, particularly the Capitol, threatened the lives of lawmakers, staff, and the general public, physically assaulted members of law enforcement for hours, and jeopardized the peaceful transfer of presidential power. After which the largest criminal investigation in the history of the United States followed, and more than 1,500 individuals were convicted of crimes, either after trial or by their own admission through a plea of guilty, including 400 of them for violent crimes. As a result of the conduct of those persons, one police officer died directly. 4 of them committed suicide after that, and we witnessed all of the physical violence in real time and afterward on recordings by the individuals as well as by law enforcement, body-worn cameras, security videos, and so on. We witnessed officers who were choked, crushed, pinned in doorways, tased, dragged, and beaten. And then there were also 14 people who were linked to the extremist groups, the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, who had planned elements of this attack ahead of time. Unfortunately, well, first of all, I think we can all agree, I mean, the evidence is indisputable, and I played a video montage at the Judiciary Committee hearing of the video evidence of what happened. I think we can all agree that that kind of conduct is inexcusable, certainly that it's criminal, and whatever your views on the outcome of the election, that it had been going through the ordinary process and was about to be completed as a certification by U.S. Congress when this occurred. So the purpose of this occurrence, of this incident, of these attacks on the Capitol was to interfere with that. Regardless of that, the conduct itself was criminal. There were many convictions, and when President Trump took office, on the very day that he took office, January 20th of this year, a mere 60 days or so ago, he issued a pardon to all of these individuals that were convicted of these crimes. That pardon had the effect of greenlighting or saying it was okay that these crimes occurred. And in particular, the crimes against our law enforcement officers that were protecting the Capitol, were protecting the members of Congress, both parties, the staff, and protecting the Vice President, who was there in his ceremonial role to preside over the certification of the election results. So I would hope that all members of the elected officialdom who have sworn oaths to our state and federal constitutions would be able to at least join forces in stating that a line was crossed with these pardons, that these pardons were unique, they were different, they were extraordinary use of the pardon power, never before done on this scale and in connection with an attempted insurrection or interference with the peaceful transfer of power in our democracy, and that we should all be able to agree, regardless of what you think about who was elected and the election itself, that the pardon of these kind of violent crimes against our law enforcement officers and others had crossed a line. And the purpose of this resolution is for us to join in saying that we find that was not acceptable, that we condemn those particular pardons. I do have an amendment I'd like offered that would strip out one of the resolved clauses that addressed judicial decisions, which in my own view, is a bit outside the main purpose of what I view as the main purpose of this resolution. So I'd invite an opportunity to have those lines stripped out. That'd be the A3 amendment.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move the A3 amendment, and then I have some comments I'd like to make.
Senator Pappas moves the A3 amendment. Senator Latz, did you want to describe that amendment before we go to discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair and members, the A3 amendment deletes lines 13 and 14 on page 2. It's the second resolve line that the Senate rejects any attempt to abandon or ignore the decisions reached by those in the judicial branch at the state or federal level. And while I've got plenty of thoughts on whether or not the executive branch ought to be complying with judicial orders, it seems to me that that's outside the main scope of this resolution, which has to do with the pardons and the violent attacks on the Capitol and law enforcement officers defending it.
Thank you, Senator Latz. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to comment that I think that there might be a justification for some pardons for people who had short sentences, who were remorseful, who kind of got caught up in the moment, had not come with violent intent. And I think if the president had been more selective, there wouldn't be the controversy that's around this. But clearly, people who attacked police officers who had, some died, some were heavily injured, came with violent intent and were sentenced in a court of law to, in some cases, 22 years in prison. Clearly, that was inappropriate for anybody to have received a pardon. Thank you.
Pappas, thank you. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussion, Senator Pappas moves the A3 amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we already adopted the amendment.
No worries, it is Monday morning. That's right. All right, so Senator Pappas moves the A3 amendment. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. And the amendment is adopted. And now to the resolution itself. Members, is there discussion? Senator
Chair.
Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Latz, thank you for bringing this forward. I know it's been a concern for a lot of people, the pardon process and how that is going. Senate Republicans are very concerned with public safety, and that is something that we've staked our reputation on, and just last week you saw that exercised within our body and our calls to make sure that we're policing ourselves and what that looks like. I think right now, as we look at that, there are things that we could be doing in this state to increase the public safety. I think you control a lot of that with the judiciary and public safety bill itself. I know you've had a lot of very extensive meetings over the last few months, and you have a lot more coming. And so there are things that we should be working on right now, today, instead of coming into a rules hearing to talk about a list here of things that might be condemning of a certain action. I know we could get into the debate on going back and forth whose pardons were worse and what that looks like, but that's not what we're here to do today. And so what we're concerned about is making sure that we're passing budgets to ensure that Minnesotans feel safe, both out in public and in their homes. And we're very concerned about that. I am extremely disappointed that we are coming in early today to spend time going over a resolution that doesn't even address Congress or the president. It goes to Governor Walz. And we're going to be spending time here this morning discussing a resolution over things that I think that we have actual concern about. The pardon process, we saw that being used politically in a way that on the other side that I think many of us have a lot of concerns about. But this dog whistling and political points that we're trying to score this morning is not a productive conversation. And so, Madam Chair and Senator Latz, let's get back to what we should be doing and get back to the budget, get back to the things that Minnesotans are asking us to do, and that's actually within the power of what we are sent here to do in our jurisdiction. And so that's really what I'm asking for, is an opportunity to refocus back on Minnesotans again, and hopefully that's what we're going to be doing. So we don't have a lot of discussion this morning to talk about this. I'm just very disappointed that this is the way that we're going to start out the week.
Thank you, Leader Johnson. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Latz, for bringing this forward. I'm sure many people know my father's active sergeant with the Ramsey County Sheriff's Department. I can't get him to retire for the life of me. And as a young girl, I grew up, and when Dad would go to work, he was on patrol. Wouldn't always have a guarantee he was coming back. And I grew up watching my dad get assaulted in the line of duty. Bruises, kicks to the face, hit. He worked at Regents Hospital quite a bit, saw a lot of violence there. And I have always grown up with the utmost admiration and respect for not only our law enforcement officers, but what their families go through. And I want to be clear that I absolutely condemn all violence towards law enforcement. As somebody who's had to watch her dad ice his face when he comes home from work. As the daughter of a law enforcement officer, I'm also a senator who, this is my 5th session, and over the last year, I don't know what's going on, but the hyper-partisanship that's happening here is actually really heartbreaking. We can spend our time trying to hit each other and score political points. We can talk about what the president's doing, in which case we may as well become a mini Washington, D.C. and not really care about the people of Minnesota. Or we can be the ones that step up and say, look, we got to work together. There's 201 legislators. We've never been more further divided, and it's up to us to decide if we're going to work together, spend our time on stuff like this, or not. And trust me, I think you're very well aware, Senator, that there have been resolutions of things, even internationally, that I've wanted us to talk about, but have kept at bay because it's not good for this institution nor the people we represent. And so I hope that the leaders in this room can step up and say, look, this isn't a use of our time. We aren't talking about what's going on in DC or internationally. And we can all agree, we don't like violence against criminals or violence against law enforcement officers. We don't like those criminal acts, but we also don't like how partisan things are getting here, and we're better than this. So I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the support for law enforcement, but I hope this is something that we choose not to move forward with. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coleman. Is there any other discussion? And seeing no further discussion, Senator Pappas moves.
Madam Chair,
Senator Latz,
if I may briefly,
of course.
thank you. We all play roles here in voting for budgets and so on, but we also play important roles as leaders in our communities and in our state. And what we say and how we say it and what we message is important in terms of saying violence against law enforcement officers is not acceptable. In terms of saying excusing violence against law enforcement officers is not acceptable. In terms of saying we're going to let people out of jail who've been convicted by a court of law, often by their own words and pleas of guilty, is not acceptable. That kind of messaging, to me, is among the highest of our callings as public officials, as elected officials. It's the bully pulpit, if you will, but that's really, really important also, not just whether we vote yes or no on funding this agency at this level or that agency at that level or any other particular policies. I don't think there's any value in getting into a food fight over who's brought more partisan-related initiatives on the Senate floor, how many hours have been spent on the Senate floor in committees dealing with distractions, or arguing over whether they were distractions. Calling now for the best of us to step forward as an opportunity to join forces and to say, this crossed a line. This is different than all other pardons. This crossed a line. I think we should be able to come together and say that, not in a partisan way. And that's what I'm calling upon us to do with this resolution.
Thank you, Senator
Thank
Latz.
you, Chair.
Senator Pappas renews her motion that Senate Resolution Number 15 be recommended to pass as amended. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, please say no.
No.
The resolution is passed. Thank you, Senator Latz. Seeing no more business before the Rules Committee, this committee is adjourned. All right. Good morning, members. It is 9:35 on March 24th, 2025, and the Minnesota Senate Committee on Rules Administration Subcommittee on Committees is called to order. A quorum is present. We are meeting today to make two appointments by the subcommittee. There are materials in your packet. We would be making appointments to the Minnesota Job Skills Partnership Board and making an appointment to the Clean Water Council. Are there questions about the materials in front of us or the appointments being made?
Madam Chair,
Senator Johnson.
I hate to elongate the meeting a little bit, but is there any background on Mr. Meyer on this?
Senator Johnson, we do have background on Mr. Meyer. This is a reappointment to the Job Skills Partnership.
Okay.
And I am happy to get you more materials, and if you'd like us to delay his reappointment, we can do that.
He's currently, Madam Chair, on the board.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe after, I'll just take a look at those if you could.
Okay.
But we can proceed.
All right. Thank you, Senator Johnson. I appreciate that. Is there any other discussion about the appointments before us? Seeing no further discussion, Senator Pappas moves the appointment of Brad Meyer to the Minnesota Job Skills Partnership Board to serve a term until January 1st, 2029. And further, she moves that Senator John Hoffman be appointed to the Clean Water Council to serve at the pleasure of the appointing authority. Thank you, Senator Pappas. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. And that motion is adopted. And with that, our business is adjourned, our committee is adjourned.